God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Ms. Nichols? Here. Ms. Hale?
Here.
Mr. Safdie?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Ms. Hamby?
Here.
Ms. Stout?
Here.
And Ms. Stoll?
Here.
Okay, so let the record show that Ms. Stoll and Ms. Stout are both doing Zoom, and Mr. Davis is missing in action. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the community comments. Ms. Newcomb?
Okay. Candy Newcomb, 300 Old Grassy Cove Road. I'm here to speak about a security fence around the entire boundary at Homestead Elementary School. I think it's a great idea to have all the children under one roof. However, if construction began today, it could take 2 or 3 more years before it's completed. I spoke at the board meeting in July of 2022 and nothing has been done. You have procrastinated for 2 years. Now there's a dilemma on the type of fence, footage, height, and gates. This is more procrastination. I was fortunate to attend the meeting at Homestead School where the sheriff stated that 1 key and fencing are needed. I would like to remind you that you want more fencing also, and I say that because it's in the BOE's strategic plan. The front of the school is where most of the children are picked up and dropped off. This is a vulnerability which needs to be addressed, but it's believed that 1 key will solve everything, and it won't. After the Uvalde shooting, Locos Public Charter School erected a chain-link fence with 3 tension wires across the top to ensure that no intruder can climb over. And that was done like a month later. They spent $14,975 to erect an 850-foot fence. And it looks like to me it's 6 or 7 feet tall, and it's in my handout. If you're going to build a fence, then build it right so people can't crawl over it and do all of it. Building part of it does no good since they can just walk around it. Children can leave and outsiders can get in. The Building and Grounds Committee passed a perimeter fence for the school. However, once it went to the Budget Committee, the plans changed. Now the plan is to take part of the funds to move the playground on the 127 South Side to the back of the school. If the playground is moved and the 1 key strategy takes place, I want you to think about all the construction for the new building, which is in the back, and the fact that the playground for the 2nd through 4th graders is in the back, right next to it. Is that safe? Why not fence the perimeter of the school now? After construction, move the playground. The SRO officer has stated that 3 to 4 times a week he has to tell people to leave school property. This is because there is no defined boundary. Additionally, the installment of sidewalks will lead to increased foot trafficking. If fencing and manually operated gates are erected and cameras are installed, this will deter the leisurely person passing by as they are typically law-abiding citizens. If someone walks through the gates, in or out, that's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Clark.
My name's Linda Clark. I live in the Homestead District, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I have sat through, I believe, all of the budget process this year, and have a few observations about this year's process. One, I appreciate the good use of the facility study to determine priorities for maintenance expenditures. I also appreciate that the video has been recorded for everyone's benefit whenever schedules cannot always be accommodating to all of the meetings. I also want to hugely commend the staff members that have no choice in attending or accommodating the multiple revision requests. And I appreciate Ms. Diane, Ms. Bray in particular, but also those staff members that sit in the cheap seats back there. And yes, and they're still writing. And patiently sit through and respond to all of the budget requests and the board members' inquiries. I want to encourage you in tonight's meeting because everyone is on an equal footing here on the board. You each represent 6,500 some odd residents of Cumberland County, and it's important to hear every voice and to sincerely gain their input into the budget process. It's the most important job that you have to do. I also would like for you to follow through, as Ms. Nicken expressed, on the homestead safety. You have a zero fund attributed in the 24-25 budget, and I don't see why you cannot put some funds in there, if nothing else, at least for the costs that you have estimated on relocating the playground. That was $50,000. Things change as the budget year goes on, but you should start with something in that budget item. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda item is the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, before we do that, may I make a motion that we amend the agenda to add the baby birds for discussion and vote?
Is that a motion?
Yes, that is a motion.
So you're making a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of baby birds
For discussion and vote.
discussion. We need a second on that. The motion is that we approve the agenda with the addition of adding baby birds for discussion and vote.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Stoll has seconded that motion. Any discussion? No discussion?
Can we vote, even though it's not on the agenda, with a star? Because we're just now adding
It's
it.
approval of the agenda is right beside number 5.
Yeah. So we're adding an item that wasn't heretofore on there to vote on?
We can amend the agenda for a discussion and vote item, yes.
Okay, but you said for discussion and vote. So is it discussion or vote?
We'll put it as vote and then,
Well, once there's if there's a motion made, there will be discussion.
Can we vote on it, on the motion?
That's
I mean,
what
the
we're going to
discussion?
have to, yes. Okay, there's no discussion. Ms. Nichols? Yes. Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Safdie?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Hamby?
yes.
Ms. Stoll?
Yes.
And Ms. Stout? I'm sorry, I did,
No.
okay.
Okay.
And I'll vote yes, so that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, motion carries. So that's added to the agenda, and the agenda has been approved. Next on, pardon me,
Don't we have to approve the agenda?
her motion was to approve the agenda with the addition of baby birds for vote. Okay. Next on the agenda is the maintenance budget. I had this added as a item. Everything that you see on here is included in the budget. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew kind of what this incorporated, just in case you were not here, you didn't have a chance to review it. So this is just a FYI. And are there any questions regarding any of the maintenance projects that we have chosen? And if there's not, then we'll move forward.
I got a question. Mr. Stipp,
Okay.
do you feel comfortable with the current maintenance budget as being considered for approval?
Yes, yeah, we considered this a lot and came up with this. So there was Ms. Kington, Ms. Bray, and I.
And tell me how we're handling the fencing.
Yeah.
Y'all have voted to move that money to the maintenance line item this year. So what we talked about was meeting, y'all had asked, we want you to meet with the county commission and board together. We had that meeting to discuss short-term and long-term goals. So if the fencing can be bid out and take care of out of that if we feel that is the short-term fix for right now.
And that fencing is going around everything?
The perimeter?
It can be the perimeter if we have that much money. We talked about starting out with the back, so that back end is fenced in where all the playgrounds are gonna be,
Right.
where we talked about starting.
If we moved 433, is that correct? If the most crucial item right now is Martin Elementary sewer,
Correct.
so those bids are just now coming back
Well, we're not even bid, I'm getting quotes right now so we can put our bid package
together? Okay, so we are getting quotes on that.
Correct.
That we estimated about 250.
Correct.
The remainder of that was kind of,
We used part of it for the Pine View roof, $168,000 for that we moved.
Right.
And then anything left, we could use whatever you folks decide.
should be about 182.
Somewhere in that.
And I think the fencing was quoted at 195, something like that. I think I calculated up, we were gonna need about 14,000 to go ahead, if we
If
fenced
they honor
in.
that quote. Of course, that quote is,
2 years
2
old.
months old,
yeah.
yeah. So, and I agree, but that money is kind of earmarked in maintenance
And it's in that line.
for that fence.
And
So
that's where
we're
we
just
need to
not,
be to pull a PO.
but it's in this year's current budget,
Correct.
not the the
Nothing
projected
for
budget.
23, 24.
Right. So are there any more questions about the maintenance that we had, that we proposed?
So we did earmark it, and we are gonna start on that project.
It's in the maintenance line.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if we determine that that is the short-term fix that we want, all we'd have to do is vote at a board meeting
Okay.
to spend that money for the fencing,
Or to get
or to get a bid, yeah.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
if we need additional funding, where would that money come from? And we'd have to specify that. But I know that had been the main discussion, is to move all that money over, fix. We moved 172 over for Pine View Road separately. And this is the outcomes money,
Correct.
which was about 603,
603, 605.
something like that. And then we moved the remainder of it over last board meeting into the maintenance line. So that's in the process.
So it's not like we haven't been doing anything. We've been working
No.
on it.
We're moving, we're sort of like those turtles, you said. But yes, we have been moving.
Okay. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, no more questions, Elizabeth, did you and Ms. Stout have any questions regarding the maintenance budget?
No, you answered.
Okay. Next is the classified salary scale. We have to vote to approve that. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So we have a first, and we have a
Second.
second.
Did we vote on the maintenance budget?
It's included in the budget. The budget committee voted on that. I just wanted everybody to see exactly and make sure there were no further questions. That was not a voting item necessarily.
I have a question with
Sure.
this one. On this scale, this is for the non-certified. Do they get any kind of a insurance package with Do we give them an insurance package?
Yes, ma'am, we pay everyone single coverage,
Okay.
100%. But any dependents they have to pay for that themselves,
Okay, I thought we did, but I was
Yes,
just making sure.
medical and dental.
Thank you, thank you.
That was one of the draw cards for our bus drivers.
Right.
As the medical insurance. Okay. So we have a first and second. Is there any discussion on the classified salary scale? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, your motion carries. So the classified has been approved. Next on the agenda is the non-certified supervisor and safe school counselor salary scale. And we have to approve this as well. I'll make a motion, we approve.
Second.
And we have a first and a second. Any discussion on this? If not, all in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed? So the non-certified pardon me?
You just got to echo.
That's me, okay. The non-certified supervisor and safe school counselor salary scales has been approved. Motion carried. I've got 2 copies of that. Next on the agenda is the licensed instruction personnel certified salary scale below assistant principal. And I'll entertain a motion that we approve that.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a first and second. Any discussion on this one? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next is your, apparently I ran 2 copies of everything. Next on the agenda is the assistant principal and above salary scale. I'll need a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
So we have a first and second. Any discussion on this one? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, we have. How did you ladies vote? Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. King was there, no vote. Okay, motion carries for the licensed instructional personnel assistant, principal, and above. Okay, next is the budget itself. Oh, excuse me. Where did you want to put baby birds?
We can talk about baby birds now if you'd like.
Okay. Before we start on the budget, let's do that.
We had got the funding, the grant, not the full funding, but there was an ISM grant, and Ms. Boston, you may have to help me with
Now,
that.
the ISM grant doesn't have anything to do with
Not the
baby birds.
ISM grant.
It's the TEIS.
TEIS, sorry, too many acronyms there. We got the TEIS grant funding, and we were, I think we were told that we could not supplement that, but we can. Cameron Sexton said that the Department of Education said that we can supplement with local money to replace the TEIS grant funding that previously existed to keep providing services.
Yeah, we met with TEIS and cleared all that.
So the program is going to continue?
You'd have 2 different programs going on. You'd have the services for TEIS, and that's what they pay for. If y'all want to open a daycare, then there would be a daycare. But we're going through the process of all the children being approved for 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever that is. So we're right in the middle of discussions with TEIS on what exactly is allowed, who's grandfathered in, who's not. So there's a lot of discussions going on.
Okay, well, I just wanted it brought up because at one time we thought we could not help supplement that grant.
It would be.
And we can.
You'd be funding a different type of program. So we'd have the TEIS services, that TEIS provides, depending on their numbers, and then we would basically be funding a daycare.
That would keep the 18-month-old and older is still in the
Those
program.
others, yeah, so the grant pays for one thing, and you're asking if we can pay for a daycare. The grant doesn't allow the daycare option anymore, daycare services, and that's statewide. So we met with them for, I don't know, an hour or so, for a while, trying to figure out all the new ways that they're wanting things to be done, to figure out how many hours they can serve under the grant as compared to not under the grant, and all that kind of stuff. So we're still working on that with them.
I just don't want to see any of these kids left out.
Yeah, if they've changed the rules, that's the biggest thing. It's not what we want, it's what they're gonna let us do.
Yeah.
So we'll have to come up with some serious money to run daycare if we wanna keep going with the way it's going now.
Well,
But if we run daycare here, why don't we run daycare at the Homestead? Why don't we run daycare at all the other schools? We're not designed to do that, okay? Although it's a wonderful idea,
Great idea, but I could,
but we're not designed.
and it's needed.
And I think, yes, it is needed. I think what we need to do is just give this a rest for right now and let the director of schools and the program director work this thing out with existing new rules that this organization has imposed on us. And then next year, if there is a consensus that the new board would like to start something like that, then they can work it out with the director of schools and staff.
I have a question. Do we have contract services that come into that building and provide?
So basically, right now, kids come 2 days a week, 2.5 hours for 2 days. They can come 15 minutes early and stay 15 minutes late if they need OT or PT therapy. But if they can't get those services in that 2.5 hours, it has to be outside of that 2.5 hours. But the way that we are trying to set it up where they can continue to get that therapy at Baby Birds when they come for whatever amount of time they're allotted. So we are working to try to continue that.
Well, my question was, do I have someone from the outside, or do we provide all of those services?
TIS pays for those services.
Who does the actual service? I mean, who actually works with the child?
Do we subcontract it out?
It's contracted out with Karen Henderson and Melanie, Global, Melanie Schultz, I think. She
It's a
doesn't,
different person for each service usually,
she
correct?
doesn't contract with Cumberland County Schools anymore, she just contracts with TIS.
But they come into the building and work with these children. Is it 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever I want to say IEP, but it wouldn't be an IEP.
I think it's probably, from the way they made it sound, 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes of developmental OT or PT therapy.
Individually, or can they do a group?
They can do a group, but typically those therapies are done individually.
It might be 30 minutes every day.
I've got another question.
Sure.
If the child is brought onto the Cumberland County School campus and they have an accident, whose insurance pays for it?
While they're in therapy,
Yeah,
they're still in the TIS teacher supervision. They're not taken out. Those contracted services are background check, all of drug tests and all of those things, but they are still in the supervision of our teachers during therapy at TIS.
when you say that, so if they have an accident, then does the state pay for the insurance, or does the state, who handles the insurance? This was a problem we had many moons ago with the daycare. We're starting a daycare. The issue was who is liable and what is the liability that we have for starting a daycare center with the children.
Yeah.
Now, I think that in previous years, the liability was too great, and we opted not to provide daycare services because of that. And I guess I want to know, have the rules changed? I'm an old dinosaur, and
I can find that out and get that to you. on who exactly is liable.
In the grant, it says licensure credentials, professional liability insurance. Cumberland County Schools will keep on file documentation of licensure credentials as appropriate for each staff member's specialty area and copies. That the grantee, Cumberland County Schools will keep a copy of the insurance pertaining to professional liability.
That's professional liability, and what about accidental?
Says liability of the state under the grant contract exceeds 900.
Well, that's a good question that needs to be answered, or should be answered.
I can get an answer pretty quickly.
Okay.
Get it to y'all today if I can.
So for instance, there's two questions or two components that I'm asking about. One is the liability we have with the existing program that's been funded by the state, and the other is if we start a daycare option, which is separate from that, then who's liable?
Well, if we'd be paying that and funding that, then the school system would be liable for the daycare.
Risk management.
What hours are we looking at as far as the daycare option to have coverage after the services are provided?
Did you hear that question, Ms. Holden?
So currently, the TIS grant pays for 2 full-time employees, the teacher and the director and an assistant. So those people will be paid just like a teacher and an assistant for Cumberland County Schools. So they will be, their benefits and their pay, full-time pay will be.
Her question was, what hours are we looking at?
So we can offer 2.5 hours of services per day, but the staff is paid for full-time hours.
So the children would only be there for the 2.5 hours a day like they currently are right now. It wouldn't exceed that time frame, is that correct?
If that's for TEIS. Now the daycare, if you started a daycare, you could set whatever those hours that you want it to be.
Okay. What is it operating currently? As we speak, what hours are the kids there?
8 to 10:30.
So right now, we currently have 2.5 hours.
Yes,
And
correct.
it's twice a week, so they alternate days, who comes which days, because you can only have 8 kids per adult.
Okay.
Right.
What, go ahead, I'm sorry, Ms. Stone.
No, I guess if that's what we're currently doing and that's what we're going to be doing, what exactly, I guess, would be changing, or what would we be adding?
What would be changing?
So we have proposed that, and this is just a proposal because it's an IFSP team decision, but we've proposed that we can run 2 days a week, the 2.5 hour sessions, 8 to 10:30. So if a kid needs 2.5 hours, they could come on Monday. If they need 5 hours, they could come on Monday and Tuesday. Then we've set it up where on Wednesday and Thursday, if a kid needs an hour and a half, they could come from 8 to 9:30. If they need 3 hours, they could come from 8 to, or 2.5 hours, 8 to 10:30 that day, and the same on Thursday. So we've adjusted it where we're open 8 to 10:30, and we can serve whatever hours they tell us to serve.
Okay.
So every child's needs are different, so that's why we have so many different time slots. That's why it's a complex setup that Ms. Holton's doing a great job handling. But each child is different, so if you have one child that needs 2.5 hours and somebody else that only needs 1, well, that's 2.5 hours where we can't pull in another kid because we're at 8. Does that make sense? So you got those numbers, you're changing throughout those days and hours. So, but we got to stick to that 8-to-1 ratio. We don't have a choice on that.
So each child would just be allotted their number of hours for therapy. That's the portion that's changing
Correct.
from what it currently is. They automatically get those 2.5 hours twice a week, and if they don't need 2.5 hours in that week, then they wouldn't be there both of those days.
Correct.
Is that what? Okay.
So TEIS has told us that kids should not have automatically got 2 days, 2.5. It should have been more on an individual basis decision previously. But
Okay.
moving forward, that decision will be based on the amount of hours, but the max they can have is 2.5 hours per day.
And what they said when we spoke to them about that, if you stick to those hours, then you can actually serve more children that way that have certain needs. So that's how they explained it to us.
So we're looking at, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
we're looking at keeping the program open the 4 days that we consistently had.
Okay, that was one of my questions.
You just won't have the kids there for more than 2.5 hours, or whatever hours they need.
Whatever, like, so for example, a kid might have come Monday, Tuesday for 5 hours last year. This year, the team might say, you only need 2.5 hours. So now, instead of only serving one kid 5 hours, I'll be able to serve 2 kids for 2.5 hours each.
Okay.
Mr. Sanders?
So we're hoping to increase the number of kids that get to come to Baby Birds in this too.
One of the questions that I think is important is how will the socialization process continue with these new hours?
So we currently, in a classroom, we can have up to 15 kids right now, and we had 3 classrooms, so there was approximately 5 kids in each room. With a new schedule we're running right now, there'll be 2 adults with 4 children. So there will be 4 children together, 2 adults, more than likely in the same room, where this year we've had 3 different rooms based on ages. But now we'll only be in one room, but there will be 4 kids together at any given time.
Do you feel that that's, given the parameters of what the state is giving you, do you feel that is sufficient?
I don't know that they would have got any more the other way, just because they would have got more different children at recess, because all the classes went down to recess together. But the majority of their time they spent in their classrooms, which had a top of 5 kids. So that aspect doesn't change. And they're really going to have higher adult ratio to children now to be able to get more one-on-one for each child.
How many children are in the program?
I'm sorry.
How many children are in the program currently?
Currently, we have 27.
Do you anticipate a greater number of students participating next year?
So what we have is we have some kids with extended option. They can choose to stay till they're 5 right now. So we do think some of the 27 stayed with Baby Birds so they could have services through the summer, and then are planning to come to the school age program in August. Some families are not planning on that. So I think we're going to see a difference, and some kids are going to go to a different program, like the school age program. Some kids are going to stay at Baby Birds, and then the kids that stay at Baby Birds, we're going to try to get them as much services that they've had, similar to what they've had in the past. But eventually, our hope is that if we can serve every kid for 2.5 hours instead of 5, we can double the number of kids that are getting that service. Because right now, we have kids on a waiting list that can't come because we don't have a spot.
So we do have a waiting list?
They stopped enrollment when all of this started, so.
Okay. And you really won't know what the program will actually look like until you get those evaluations.
So I met with them, me and Mr. Stepnow met with them yesterday, and they said, okay, what hours are you gonna be open? I said, I'm gonna be open Monday through Thursday, 2.5 hours each day. They said, well, how many kids do you want? I said, I will serve whatever kids you give me. Whatever amount of time you give me. If you tell me 5 hours, if you tell me 3, if you tell me 1. She said other places are saying we're only serving kids an hour and a half. We are leaving it up to whatever that IFSP team decides that is best for that child, then that's what we're gonna do.
So will all of this then be decided for when the new session rolls over in July?
So we're having we had a meeting yesterday, today, we have another meeting tomorrow with the service providers and different staff with TEIS. And the goal would be that all families would meet with an IFSP team meeting in the month of June, so the decisions are made to start July 1.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with this transition?
I think that I'm doing the best with the parameters I'm given.
Good.
I think that I still am trying to give every kid that can get the services, get services. I think that, we're doing the best we can. And I think that we are continuing to keep the validity of the program that we have now. We want it to be good services, and I think that we are continuing to do that even with the number of parameters that we've been given.
Thank you.
If you find, after those evaluations are given to you, and you have more, we would welcome you to come back before this board, if we can help.
So, Madam Chair, and with the discussion, I don't think we need a vote. Sounds like they are.
I think you've got it well in hand.
I will withdraw that. So,
Thank you. Okay.
thank you for the information. That was my goal. I wanted information because I really hadn't heard exactly what was going on. So, thank you.
Thank you for raising that question.
Next on the agenda is the actual budget. Has everyone had the opportunity to review this budget in depth and with all your heart and soul?
Until your eyes are crossing because of the numbers.
I think we've talked it to death. Does anybody have a question? Do we want, I think Ms. Bray has been practicing to go through this yet again, haven't you? Okay. Is that necessary, or do we have specific questions?
I guess the question that I have, is it necessary for the public? Or to have our meetings, our budget meetings in the past been sufficient enough to inform the public of what we were doing?
Oh, those that, and I've received several communications that they have, now that we are videoing all of our committee meetings, that several people have watched this budget, have looked at it. Yes, sir, you have.
I've had several comments to that as well, that they have
Yeah.
been watching the.
So I think our public has been, those that are interested have been well informed.
Yes, and I've heard the same comments that now that we are videoing,
We can do this one of two ways, and I'm open either way. This budget came out of Budget Committee, and I think most of us were in attendance for the majority of meetings. I think we had good attendance on those. We can ask specific questions, or we can have Ms. Bray go through it and hit the highlights. And I'll do it either way you want to do that.
I think she wouldn't have to go through it again, she's gone through it so many times.
Exactly. I think if someone's got a specific question, go ahead and ask that specific question, but I think Ms. Bray has really.
Like she really wants to.
has went over, and like we said, the public has been very informed. Anybody can go online and print it out, so.
Ms. Bray does not want to give me the opportunity to start asking questions. She does not.
The only thing that I was gonna ask is if she could just hit on the sheets that just had the most recent changes from the last budget committee meeting.
Okay. Did you hear that?
I think
The changes is.
With the AP and above salaries.
the AP and above salaries, so that's gonna hit your principal page and then your supervisor pages, all those salary lines for the class, or for the certified supervisors.
And on page 28, Kim,
Uh-huh.
you've still got your box truck on?
Well, I took it out of the total. I saw
Okay.
that when
I know that, but,
I've taken it off my copy now.
okay, that's the only thing I saw.
Well,
It's-
we have to,
And then the aviation, we took the 2 scholarships, knocked that down to 2.
Right.
And that's the only changes that I made.
Okay.
if the box truck is, what line is that?
It is
On
on
the very last
the last page, and it's on other
Capital
capital
outlay.
outlay.
Your screen's went blank.
I'm doing that on purpose, I'm trying to find a better way to copy.
799, line 799. And so that is just your school and department needs that we give out each year. Go to page 28.
I'm on page
And that,
28.
from what I see, the dollar amount changed, but the comment just hadn't been removed.
That is correct.
That's on me.
That is correct.
Okay.
You're allowed.
Thanks.
I think
Yes.
you're okay, Kim.
Yeah, I think you're,
So we cross out the one box truck.
That's it. I mean, and I just saw that because I didn't want it going out.
Well, I caught it today just before I walked in.
I did too. So, those are the only changes that have been made since our last meeting. Any other questions?
Yeah, quick question. I know on page 28, under the building improvements, line 707, we had the balance on CCHS, and then we listed Homestead in the comments there, and we had that at 0.
Right.
What was the intent with that? Are we going to, if that full balance doesn't go to CCHS, it stays there in that line for Homestead? Or were we gonna talk a little bit about funding that line for Homestead?
I think at this point, we really don't know what we're funding. The money for the fencing is in the current year's budget, and I think that is as far as we have gotten on that. We
So
wanted that homestead to be there, and if at a later date, we want to move some money into that homestead line. If we have outcomes money that come in, we can always put it there. We can put it there as the need arises. That was my thoughts. I don't think we were specifically funding anything since the fencing was in the current budget.
Okay, so once we land on the amount that's going to fencing and possibly moving the playground, if it's gonna be more than what's left from the Martin Electric on this year's, then we would need to be looking to fund that line.
Transfer
next
money,
year.
you can do a resolution, and once the county commission approves this budget and the state approves this budget, you can, if we were to receive a gift from the state, let's say, then you could always vote and do a resolution that the money go in there earmarked for homestead.
I really look forward to gifts from the state.
We all do.
You never know.
Never know.
The outcomes money was a gift, and we put it to very good use.
That's right.
Any other questions?
So I wanted to hear from Mr. Stepp. I know he's been going through this process with the budget committee. This budget looks very different than what he originally sent out to all of us, his recommended balanced budget. So I just wanted to hear from him, now that the changes have been made, does he feel that with these changes, we are indeed supporting the strategic plan that we have in place, and he and the staff will be able to be successful in moving forward in our top priorities for next year?
Yes.
Well, that was one simple answer to a long question.
It's appreciated.
Okay.
Well, you kind of got the best of all worlds. We've got a fund balance, not as much as we had last year, but with the restrictions that have been put on us, I think, and the maintenance, we've got a very heavy maintenance plan. Some of the big items are being taken care of. And, I mean, we've done the best we could do with the resources that we have, and still have something just in case it rains.
And it looks like with the certified, we've closed the gap down pretty good to that 50,000 minimum that we have to hit, so looks like we're about 34.25 away. When I was looking at that from where we need to be to hit the 50,000 minimum by the deadline.
Yes. And we've got, Kim, 2 years on that? 2026.
So that'll be a little less over the next couple of years than what we've been looking at.
That's great. Okay. Any other discussions?
Mr. King? Any comments?
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this budget, and let's get it out to the county commission.
We need
I
roll
make a
call
motion
vote.
to approve.
I'm going to. So we've got a motion on the floor that we approve this budget. I'll entertain a second.
So moved.
So we've got a first and a second. While I've got Ms. Stoll here, because I know she's got to go, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Ms. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Safdie?
Yes.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Hamby?
Yes.
And board chair votes yes, so motion carries. This this budget will go out to the county commission. I think we propose it June 6th
June 6th.
at 4:30. Did everyone get that date? We present our budget June 6th at 4:30 to the county commission. But this will give them about 2.5 weeks to review. So if no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion we adjourn.
So we have a first and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So we're well on our way. Thank you, ladies.